All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's live stream. I'm going to share my screen so we can get started. Screen one. Oh, so can you see my screen, Sonia? Is it coming through? Okay, great. I'm going to hop over to this screen. So the last time we continued extending our network status site by adding a header to it that we can scroll through. If we go to the uptime page, we can see the uptime of our services. If we go to the latency page, we will see the latency graph that we worked on a couple of weeks before. So what we want to do today, we actually want to do two things. You see that there's a tiny thing on the bottom that says this is a footer. We want to build out that footer and also implement a new functionality that is going to separate this graph into two different graphs. So at the moment, we have all our services showing up in this graph. What we want to do is have the server services be at the top and the web related services like the Explorer, the documentation, and the Shardeum website be at a different graph. So we're going to do, hopefully we have enough time to do both of those things, but I think we can probably get started with this one since we're already here. Yeah, let's actually dive in. So I'm going to come back to the code. If you're joining us for the first time, this is the stream where we try to build in public to show you how we are doing some of the things that we're doing here at Shardeum. We try to teach you about open source, how to contribute. On some other streams like this one, we try to build along to show you how we are building some of the services that we're using at Shardeum. So this is the current project that we're working on the live stream. It's the network monitoring site for Shardeum. It's going to give you kind of a status of how Shardeum's networks are performing. At the moment, it says the website is offline, but that is intentional because we've turned it off for demonstration purposes. However, the rest of our services are online. So what we're going to do today is what I spoke about just a few minutes before. So I'm going to separate this latency graph into multiple graphs, and after that we can try to implement the footer for this site. So let's start with the latency. Right here we have the latency page that is currently showing the services that we pass into it. The services is coming from our fetch status, that is fetching the data for our all the different services that we're monitoring. So if I split this into two actually and save that, I should now have two graphs, but they are pretty much exactly the same thing, right? So what we want to do is have this graph show the web related services while the first one shows the server related services, like the JSON RPC server and the monitor server and so on. So I will comment this out for now. So what I want to do first is grab the data about the servers and about the services and basically separate the data. So let's do, I'm going to call this server services name. We can name this better later on. This is going to be an array that will hold the names of the server services. So we have the monitor, then we have the JSON RPC server. Let's do JSON RPC, and then we have the archive server. So let's do archivers, right? And then let's do the same thing for the web services. Definitely not all of this. So we're going to have the website. This is going to be website. We're going to have documentation, and then we will have the Explorer. So this is basically going to represent the data that we currently have on the graph. So if you look under here, you're going to see we've got website, archiver, JSON RPC, Documentation Explorer, and Monitor. Then what I'm going to do is create another empty arrays that we can push data into. So let's do server services, because I'm going to actually grab this data from the services variable that we currently have. I'm going to initially make this an empty array and do the same for the web services. Then I can loop over our services data that we have and say for each data that we have there, I'm going to convert the service name to a lowercase. So let's do service name lowercase. I suck at naming things, by the way, so I'm definitely doing a shitty job at naming all these things, but yeah, I'll run with it for now, and we can change it up later. Then what I want to do now is push all the services that have if we find any of these any of the names we have in this array in any of the services, then we push it into the server services. If we find the names in the web services inside of our services.name, we push that into the web services. So let's do server services name for each of the names in there. What I'm going to do is if service name lowercase includes the name that we have, then push it into the server services. So I'm going to basically repeat the same process for the web services. I'm going to let Copilot do that one for me. It should know. Great. So what I want to do is let me try to log to see if I get the, let's do the server services first. What is he yelling about? Variable server services implicitly has an ini type. Okay, I'm going to cast this as a service array because that's the type it is, and we're bringing that in from our types file, so we should have that working. Then yeah, because this is a server component, the logs is going to be in the terminal as opposed to in the browser. So now that we are logging server services, we should see that the monitor service, the data for the monitor service is coming through, the data for the JSON RPC server is coming through, the data for the archiver 2 and archiver 1 is coming through. So this is working as we'd expect. What I would do now is try to pass that data into our latency graph as opposed to passing services directly. So I will pass these arrays that we've specified here. So let's do server services, and let me try to save that, actually see what we get. Now we have a graph that shows only the server services, which is precisely what we wanted. Okay, so then I'm going to uncomment this and let's pass the web services here, and there you go, we have two different graphs now. But I want them to be I want to give them like names, like call these server services and web services, so that if anyone comes to this page, they know exactly what these graphs are. Let's pass a name here. We can say that this is server services. And let's do the same thing here. This is web services. Then I have to go into the latency graph component to provide this name prop. And we're we're going to make it a string type. When we set up this component, we already provided the title of the graph, of the latency graph, to be the name. So this should show up, like, look at it here in line 43. The title of the graph is going to be gotten from the name that we just passed in. So if we save this, we should have the server services and the web services graphs show up here. Yeah, if anyone would like to see any other kind of thing here, let me know in the chat and we will try to implement it. Yeah, but this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to just have the server be different, the graph for the server be different from those of the web-based services. So I think we can probably go on to trying to set up the footer, right? That's the one thing that I think we are lacking at the moment. For that, I made a bit of a sketch. At the moment, this is the kind of the structure of the site. So we have the header, we have the body that shows the network status, and then this is what I hope that the footer would look like, right? We're going to show like some links on the footer, maybe link out to the careers page, to the Shardeum blog, to the documentation, maybe the white paper as well. And then we're going to have our social icons like Shardeum on Twitter, on GitHub, LinkedIn, I don't know. We can just put some links here that will link to our social media handles, and then the all rights reserved texting. So this is the idea that I have for the footer. That's what I'm going to try to see if we can do. That's going to involve a lot of Tailwind CSS. So this bit might get a little bit boring because I'm just going to be writing classes and you all just have to be looking at me do all of that. So I apologize ahead of time. But yeah, it's part of the thing we want to build today. So let's get started with it. I'm going to go into the footer. I don't think we have anything there at the moment. We don't have anything. But the first things we want to have is to set up the nav items, right? Or at least the links that we want to have in the footer, right? So let's start with that. I'm going to call them navigation. When I hear navigation, I usually think of things in the header, like things on like these things, for instance. So when I see nav items or navigation items, that's what comes to mind. But here we're going to use it in the footer to see to create what we want. So we're going to have a main section, which is going to be the first one that we talked about, and maybe we can have, well, in that case, I'm going to make this an object so that we can have a main, and then we can have the social, because we have like two types of links in the footer. So in the main is where I want to have the links to, blog, white paper, careers, all of that. So let's do that. The first item is going to be, let's do name. Okay, I like the suggestion from ChatGPT. Sorry, Copilot. About, I think we shouldn't necessarily need an about page for this. Let's just have a Shardeum. This should link to Shardeum's website, right? So let's give it a href of I'm gonna grab the link to shardeum.org here and stick that in here. Yeah, that's what I want, and that's pretty much it. Then the next one is going to be the blog. I'm just going to accept this help and then fix whatever is missing later on. Okay, so documentation, docs.shardeum.org. I'm just going to need to confirm that that is correct. Shardeum documentation. Yeah, look at that. It is actually correct. Okay, and the Explorer, you know what? Yeah, this part you did not get right. So I'm gonna look for Shardeum's Explorer. I think he has like a Sphinx, yeah, in the URL. So I can update that. And then Shardeum's GitHub. Let me grab that. It should be the first one that comes up. Okay, I think this is probably good enough for now. Or maybe let's just add the white paper, because I think when people do come to the network monitoring site, that could be a good way to point them to Shardeum's white paper. So I'm gonna do that. Let's add one last time. White paper, and let me find a link for the white paper. I think I'll just grab the PDF one. Okay, this should probably suffice for now. Then for the socials, I want to account for Twitter, GitHub, and maybe YouTube, because we've got a YouTube channel where we're showing all of these live streams as well. But those ones are going to be SVGs. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab those links. Okay, so as one of the first items, this is going to be so X. I still call it Twitter, but yeah, you know what? I'm just going to leave it as X. I think that's what it is now. And then that's the first item. I'm going to grab an SVG for YouTube. Let me quickly find out. Yeah, I know this part of the live stream is usually, well, a bit boring for people who are watching, so just bear with me while we get through it. What else is there? This, we have YouTube, we have X. Let me find GitHub as well. Yeah, that's also why I'm not like typing out all of these SVGs and trying to do it all from scratch, because then you would have to watch me do all of that, type all of that for a long time, which is not good for anyone. Okay, so we've got our social links, we've got our main links. I think since we have GitHub in the socials, just we shouldn't have that here again. So maybe instead we should have a link to the careers page. Yeah, be good. So if anyone wants to join any company within the Shardeum ecosystem, this would be a good way to show it to you. So let's do Shardeum careers. We'll grab a link to it. Yeah, let's do that here and save. Okay, we have our nav items, we have the main, and we have the social. Great. Okay, the next thing we want to do now is to actually start putting all the content here to show it. So I'm going to go with a footer, and in there I'm going to have a parent div. I'm going to be styling this as I go along so that I don't have to come back to it later on. This is just going to have a white background for now. If I need to add any more things there, I will do that. Then what I want to do is have inside of this initial div, we're going to have our nav. This is where we're going to show all the items, all the main items. So we're going to do application.main, and then we're going to map through it. And then for each item, I'm going to have an anchor tag. This is going to be item.name, and then the link is going to be item.href. And for the styling, let's do class name is going to be text small. One second, I'm just gonna grab the mic and get it closer to my. Okay, cool. So we're going to make the text small, right? And then we're going to, I wonder if I should give like a hover, so that if you hover on it, the color is going to change a bit. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do text gray for the color, text gray 600, so that when you hover, then we change the color to maybe 500, and then let's give it a digit 6. Okay, then inside of the anchor tag, what I want to do is use a span, because we're going to have two things here. We're going to have the name of the item, and we're going to have the item icon. And this is going to be height 6. Great. And item icon is yelling at me like I don't have the JSX element, so I will come to you later. In the meantime, I want to style these divs. For this, I'm going to give it a class name, mx auto. Let's give it a maximum width of maybe 6x. Actually, let's do 7xl. Overflow. I'm using Tailwind CSS here, in case anyone's wondering. This is currently my preferred way of styling stuff. And then I'm going to give it a different padding on the vertical axis on small screens, maybe 24. And then for larger screens and above, I'm going to give it px of 8. For the nav items themselves, I'm going to give it a class name. No, not class. I'm going to flex, and then for small screens and above, I'm going to justify center. Yeah, because I also want this to be responsive when I'm done. Then I'm going to give it some spacing. There's going to be space up to 2 pixels amongst all the nav items, and then columns of 2, 6. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna save and see what this looks like for now. Okay, it's looking good so far. So we've got Shardeum documentation explorer carriers white paper. Okay, so far so good. I'm gonna move and give this a bit more definition. I may put this inside so that I can give this parent div a padding bottom of 6 pixels because I'm going to have the social icons come right after this one. Right. So, why is he yelling at me? Cannot find name nav. Or maybe I'm not supposed to have, hang on, inside like a div inside of my nav item, which is weird. But yeah, I can probably do it here. Okay. All right, so I want to create the next one, which would be for the social icons. Let's do that right after this nav. I'm going to have a new div, and let's give this let's style this a little bit. Margin top is going to be 10 pixels so that we have some space from the existing ones. Let's flex and justify center, and maybe give it also space of 10 pixels horizontally. And then in here we're going to have our social icons. Let's do href is going to be this. Let's see, I'm going to accept this. I'm going to close my a tag right after this one, and that should do it. Then let's look at the styling for the anchor. We have text gray 400. Let's make this 500. And then when you hover, it gets to 400. Actually, let's do the same thing that we had before. I'm gonna make 600, and then you hover, it goes to 500. Great. What else do I need to style here? I think this is good. Let me see what this looks like. Okay, we have I think there's too much margin at the top. We'll reduce that a little bit. Let's do maybe 6 pixels. Yeah, it's much closer. And then the last thing that I wanted to add is the text. Where is it? The all rights reserved text. So let's do that right after this one. And this is just going to be a p element. And I wonder if I should use the date.now. Actually, let me do the styling first, and then we'll get to date.now. I'm going to give this a margin again, 6 pixels, so it maintains the same amount of space. Let's give it a text center and make the text small, or maybe extra small, so that it's smaller than the other ones. Do do leading 5 and give the text gray of 500. This one doesn't need like a hover class, so we'll just leave the hover class out of it. Then, okay, oh, I like that recommendation I had from Copilot, but it just went away. So I'm going to do copy and 2021 Shardeum all rights reserved. So this is the part where I want to use the new date, and let's do date dot now dot get full year. Perfect, all rights reserved. So this should give me 2024. Let's see. Okay, there we go. So we've got 2024 all rights reserved, Shardeum. Let's click on distance, see what happens. It goes to the links, so that's good. Documentation, that works. Explorer, that works. Careers, that works. And white paper is supposed to give me a PDF file. Great. Okay, I think we've made good progress. This is what we wanted. We have the latency graph being split in two, and we have our footer component, and we have our header component. Great. Something that I wanted to call out is that we have this project available on GitHub. If you go to the Shardeum GitHub repository, you can find it's called, the repository name is network status. Maybe Sonia or Shubham can share a link to it in the chat so that people can see. If you want to see anything different, or if you want to recommend changes or want me to do something else while we're on the stream, you can file an issue there, or like open a discussion so that we can talk about it. But yeah, I like to keep this short. We're currently a little bit like 7 minutes over time. But yeah, I think we got what we wanted to do today done. So the next thing I want to talk about is what we're going to be doing next. So I'm going to come back to Discord. My God, what is going on? Let me stop streaming and start again so that I can lose that thing I had before. Yeah, something I wanted to show is this events tab that we have on Discord. So you can always click here to see the upcoming events that we have. Next week, Sonia is going to be handling the next session, which is this one, how to create your first pull request on Shardeum, right? And after that, we have the setting up the JSON RPC server locally. So we have a couple more interesting sessions coming up that I'd like you to keep an eye out for as we get to them. If there are, I'm going to check the chat, see if there are any questions. If there aren't any, please do join our OSS devs channel. It's this one. This is where we have the conversations about open source and how to contribute. And something actually really nice happened this week. We started working with the marketing team here at Shardeum to put together our OSS contributor of the month templates that is going to start coming out at the end of next month. So we are going to do this thing where we have your face on a really nice graphic and we share it across our social channels, and we tell people that you've been contributing to Shardeum and basically shine some light on all the wonderful work that open source contributors are doing on Shardeum. So if you haven't started contributing, please go ahead and join that OSS devs channel. You can see some open issues that we have. We're going to be creating more as time goes on, and we'd like to highlight some of your success stories as you start to contribute. So that's all that we have for you all this week. We have these sessions recorded and we upload them to our YouTube channel. So if you haven't seen them, or if you've missed any of the streams in the past, you can catch up on all the things that we've been building, all the open source streams that we've been talking about on here. So you can head over there, watch the ones that you care about, and please go ahead. This is important so that you get notified when the next session starts, the same time next week. But please mark interest on all the events that we have scheduled here, so that you can get notified when it starts. So thank you all for joining us today, and we will see you again next week. Bye, everyone.